So I thought, I guess what I'm thinking is that I could read something, since what I often do is read when I go live. This time I haven't prepared myself any sort of statement. It's just that there is this book that came out. I think it was February 2024, and I don't believe I've opened it. I had a different phone last year, and all year last year I had a different phone, and now I have these other two devices that I've been using. I don't think I opened this book. It's on Google Play. It's free. It's called the Global Encyclopedia of Informality, and I feel like my studying it just a little bit has something to do with the way I'm thinking about words. And it's a little bit uncomfortable to think the way I do about words. I was just watching Diary of a CEO with Evie Poumpouras. I think she's doing this because she has a new BBC online course that you can take on being an influencer, or the art of influence. I don't see myself as an influencer, but I do have the technology to use, and there are ways of using technology that not everyone uses technology the same. I spent all year last year reading the Bible, and not so much doing the live videos. And it's like I want there to be something that I can say for myself, and I want to not so much be typing, so that I'm talking, so that I'm being present, and I have a presence to present that is being one who doesn't have very many followers. As you can see, I'm not the most eloquent, but the content that I create, as with this live video, is content that is unedited, that is in the moment. Even if it is a video that I've recorded, I try to post the video as soon as I possibly can. And practicing with exercise is one thing. I don't like to edit videos, but if I had a video that I felt would be good enough to edit, there's a possibility that I might go back and do that. It's just that I haven't been very present on camera, or present in the way that I would like, and I've had to learn the way in which I would like to be present. Having to read a little bit and study some, and I guess all of the typing I've been doing, it's frustrating my mind because I'm not actually speaking. As much as one can freely express themselves, or the self, in words, you start to talk, or you start to say whatever you want to say, and then you're like, is that the correct word? Or you start to read something, you can't even express yourself in reading because you have to go check to see if you know what that word means. And that's important, but when you're someone who's, pretty much everyone has been to school, everyone my age, you're taught to, I guess you're taught a sort of critical thinking. You're taught to prepare for a test or a quiz, or you're taught to read a textbook. You're taught to keep a schedule and things, or you're not taught, you're told. And not so much told, it's just the way things are. Your parents, they send you to school when you're a child and you're away from them, or in my case, my mother, she went to school with me the first few years up until I was in kindergarten, and that's a little awkward, right? But it's something that happened to me. Anyway, we learn, we're taught a way to learn, but if we don't feel like we're required to do it, like when you're in school and you've got the government, the state, and your parents are telling you, the teachers are telling you, go here, go there, and you're learning to be told what to do, and there's more of us than there are them, but when we're children, we're aware we're learning. We need to learn, we need to know what to do once we get adults, because the way things are, the way things just happen to be, and all of that. I don't really know what to talk about, and I didn't want my speaking to be something that I've thrown together. Thinking and typing text is, it's good, but speaking freely is something to do too. And I feel like I would like to do that better, and I need to practice more. I need to talk more. But also, I like reading. I like to read aloud, and I haven't done it. And especially, I like to read the language that I'm about to read. I think so. It's the Global Encyclopaedia of Informality. A Hitchhiker's Guide to Informal Problem Solving in Human Life. And the way I'm doing this, that it is live, is to me a informality. I've just turned on my camera, I've touched the record button. I had to hurry over here to sit down. And the fact that I'm reading a book, and the way that I'm speaking, it's not so well structured, so it makes it informal. I'm being informal right now. But that's, social media has formalized the informal in that sense, that my presence, people have the ability, like you can be sensing the presence I'm presenting, and that is a sort of informality. I think so. To me, it is. That I'm not a professional of sorts. I mean, I'm a person who's had a job, who has a smartphone that can be present, and the things that I might say are not, like, I'm not trying to tell you anything that isn't true, but it might, like, things that I say might be something that you disagree with or that you don't agree with, and I might find myself something that I don't exactly agree with, but that I'm trying to figure out, that I'm trying to understand. So let me get to, like, I need to stay focused here. It's just, I kind of wanted to read this, and it's neat to be live right now. The Global Encyclopaedia of Informality, a Hitchhiker's Guide to Informal Problem Solving in Human Life. This is Volume 3. I've read Volume 1, like some of Volume 1 and some of Volume 2. I've even, like, copied down some of the definitions, and I haven't really immersed myself in the reading of this, but I've looked in the back of the book and I felt like I'm trying to prepare to read it or whatever, but it's just the way that I have to spend my time with my work life, my going to and from work. I have things like this have to be very informal, or it isn't going to make sense, if that makes sense. So, Volume 3, edited by Elena Ledineva with Elizabeth Teague, Petra I can't say all of these names. Can't do it. But this is a Creative Commons book. It's published under a Creative Commons Attribution, non-commercial, 4.0 international license. This license allows you to share and adapt the work for non-commercial use, providing attribution is made to the author and publisher, but not in any way that suggests that they endorse you or your use of the work, and any changes are indicated. Elena Ledineva A. 2024, The Global Encyclopaedia of Informality, A Hitchhiker's Guide to Informal Problem Solving in Human Life, Volume 3, London, UCL Press. So Elena Ledineva is the author, and it is published by the University College London Press, just to be clear. Let's get right into it. Series Editor's Preface. The UCL Press Fringe Series presents work related to the themes of the UCL Fringe Center for the Study of Social and Cultural Complexity. The Fringe Series is a platform for cross-disciplinary analysis and the development of area studies without borders. Fringe is an acronym standing for fluidity, resistance, invisibility, neutrality, gray zones, and elusiveness. Categories fundamental to the themes that the center supports. The oxymoron in the notion of a fringe center expresses our interest in 1. The tensions between area studies and more traditional academic disciplines, and 2. Social, political, and cultural trajectories from centers to fringes, and inversely from fringes to centers. A Hitchhiker's Guide to Informal Problem Solving in Human Life is the 3rd volume of the Global Encyclopaedia of Informality. It continues to advance the central themes of the series: informality, human cooperation, local knowledge, and global conjunctions, context-sensitive comparisons, and context-free comparisons for area studies without borders. This time, the journey into society's open secrets, unwritten rules, and hidden practices is, quite literally, lifelong. It starts with an anchor baby born in the United States, and ends with the practices of digitalizing death rituals in China. If a planetary hitchhiker visited Earth, this volume would be a perfect guide to informal problem solving, or know-how, which all insiders tend to use without sharing it with outsiders. The volume resonates with the core objectives of the Fringe series, both theoretically and empirically. Theoretically, the volume points to the centrality of the informal, which remains a key feature of human experience, even if fluid, invisible, and resistant to articulation. It focuses on the potential of informality studies and argues that network-based expertise, such as that of the researchers represented in this volume, is itself a solution to the problem of compartmentalization of knowledge and the extinction of polymaths. International experts in economics, social psychology, anthropology, urban planning, architecture, sociology, political science, and young scholars like young scholars alike join forces in addressing global challenges and capturing key changes in contemporary societies around the world. The limitations of state-centric approaches to tackling global crises transfer the pressure onto individual migrants and entrepreneurs, families of those in need of care, job, or dwelling, and communities and networks capable of self-governing. The main argument of the proposed volume is the need to reevaluate the potential of informal cooperation in human life, which reduces social and cultural complexity, uncertainty, divisiveness of societies, as well as to integrate such informal cooperation into policies for digital, demographic, and ecological challenges. Alina Ledneva and Peter Zusi, School of Slavonic and East European Studies, University College, London. So, as you can see, I kind of stumble over my words a little bit. I see the word alike, and like is what I tried to say. I see the word join, and I said John. It's like I'm looking at it too quickly. I'm not paying enough attention to it. Plus, I feel like there's something different about looking at screens and looking at books. I remember when Guitar Hero, the video game, came out. We were playing Guitar Hero, and the screen is always going up, or there's always notes coming at you. That's it. It's going down, and when you get done playing, your eyes do this thing. So I feel like the more we move our devices, our eyes try to move with the more we look at our screens and things, our eyes will do that, and it's hard for our eyes to stay focused on things that are still. Some of us, I guess, according to how much we use our devices. It's a good reason, like a medical reason, to stay off of them, is that it might mess with our focus, and that's what focus is. When your eyes, they want to move, or they want to see something moving. It's whatever. It's what I've noticed from trying to read the Bible last year. I don't like sitting there and trying to read it, but I try to make sure that when I'm reading the Bible, that is what I'm doing. But I will pick up my device, and once I get done reading something from it, I will pick up my device and I will use my device. And there are times that if I'm not like last year, I would try to read the Bible for the dedicated 15 or so minutes. And once I was done, I would go back through it and look at things, or on the side, I would look for things. But this year, I've not read it dedicated as I was last year. So we have this right here, Informal Shortcuts at Complex Crossings, a preface. Elena Ledeneva, founder of the Global Informality Project. In the post-apocalyptic scenario of Douglas Adams' 1979 novel, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, one person escapes the destruction of Earth and struggles to explain to aliens what humanity was like. Other sci-fi civilizations may be more advanced, but they fail to understand us. It may be that they are missing the informal dimension that escapes official records and data monitoring, but remains central for problem solving in human life. This volume aims to fill that void. Our journey to the world's open secrets, unwritten rules, and hidden practices starts at a crossroads in Amsterdam. A YouTube video of which has attracted millions of viewers, 2018. The video captures the intricate way in which pedestrians, cyclists, and car and truck drivers negotiate the right of way at a complex crossroads, which is a perfect metaphor for the invisibility, omnipresence, and importance of unwritten rules on the one hand, and human cooperation on the other. And then there is a figure here, depicts both the complexity of the constraints that shape daily routines and the role of human contact in overcoming them. Complexity at the crossing, Korte Prinsengracht and Haarlemmerstraat, Amsterdam, Netherlands. There's the picture. I hope you can see that. So it depicts both the complexity of the constraints that shape daily routines and the role of human contact in overcoming them. Often, without much awareness on the part of the participants, the metaphor of driving is a perfect example of interaction between culture-specific behaviors and universally accepted rules. Humans are social animals. Yuval Harari emphasizes the crucial role of cooperation in the rise of humans over other species, 2011. Social cooperation has made us what we are. We are born connected to other people, and as we grow up, we cooperate initially with family and friends, before gradually expanding our connections to our neighborhood, school, town, country, and the world. Just as cooperation is a profound part of our life story, it runs deep through our economies and societies. Routes of migration, maps of networks, directions of trade, mutual help, and sharing access to resources and economic and political activities presented in this volume are all aspects of human cooperation. Human cooperation is also a major source of meaning and happiness for human beings. The COVID-19 pandemic, as a natural experiment, showed that while digital technology allows people to cooperate productively from remote locations, it falls short of providing the experience that makes them mentally healthy and happy. Human beings need to be close to each other, to smile, to rub shoulders, to share a joke, and to laugh at it together. The pandemic has proved that informality is essential for mental health, well-being, and happiness at individual and societal levels all over the world. Not surprisingly, during the lockdown, many companies and individuals tried, with limited success, to recreate informal gatherings online. This volume continues the Fringe series, which develops an innovative understanding of the significance of fringes and explores patterns of social and cultural complexity. The focus on elusive, taken for granted, and banal practices of problem solving or ways of getting things done the focus on elusive, taken for granted, and banal practices of problem solving or ways of getting things done in this volume resumes the bottom-up approach undertaken in the first two volumes of the Global Encyclopaedia of Informality that started the series. The previous volumes identified such practices across the globe, charted the gray zones and blurred boundaries in key domains of human cooperation, redistribution, solidarity, market domination, and distinguished four types of ambivalence essential for capturing practices resistant to articulation, visualization, and measurement. The third volume adds a human touch, emotional ambivalence, and the positionality angle to the story of social and cultural complexity. It explores how contexts create identities in terms of age, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, class, and status, and how the identities influence and bias one's outlook on the world. In post-socialist Uzbekistan, for example, veiled tensions around car ownership, which is seen as an essential part of manhood, a token of coming of age for young men, or even a prerequisite for marriage, results in women being excluded from the informal provision of taxi service. Taxovanie. Adding such nuances highlights the implications of informality. The extensive time that men in Tashkent and more widely in Central Asia spend in garages leads to the emergence of a subculture that only serves to reinforce male sociability, male bonding, and narratives of masculinity. Taxovny gives men not only a certain amount of informal income, but also a degree of autonomy and freedom. Such informal practices emerge as corollary of retreat of the state and austerity. When the state blanket has shrunk, even in the most developed economies, austerity, sternness or severity of manner or attitude, difficult economic conditions created by government measures to reduce public expenditure. Corollary. The cluster of practices within which taxovany falls offers a comparative look at underreported income in developing economies and the most developed European democracies. While identifying the under-researched practices in remote corners of the world, this collection of informal practices, clustered and viewed from a variety of perspectives in social sciences and area studies, reveals novel connecting points and patterns of human cooperation. For a hitchhiker, the practices included in this volume unfold in the so-called biographical approach that corresponds to the stages of experience in individual lives. To this end, the journey begins with a chapter on birth and proceeds with experiences of growing up, youth socialization, marriage and mutual help, the world of work and migration, political participation, exercising rights, and finally aging, illness, and dying. Each chapter opens with a conceptual introduction written from a particular disciplinary perspective that informs but also benefits from informality studies. The ambition overall is to frame informal problem solving from the multidisciplinary perspective and highlight the nuances of coping strategies from the participant's point of view. So the story of informal problem solving practices over the span of human life, as narrated in this volume, is also the story of human cooperation told from multiple angles and perspectives. Such informal yet powerful problem-solving practices tend to escape articulation in official discourse, but are often captured in the vernacular. The uniting principle of this collection of entries from over 70 countries and world regions is that they refer to practices circumventing formal constraints, captured in slang. Euphemisms for instrumental exchanges and other informal shortcuts that can be interpreted in terms of Wittgenstein's language, games, and participants' ability to go on in a situation are of particular interest, since they not only serve the purpose of polite conversation, but also highlight the necessity to embed, socialize, and normalize instrumentality. Vernaculars of informality, as Hennig and Makovicky have argued, are essential for deception and self-deception, for adhering to the norms while playing them to one's own advantage, and for talking about morally reprehensible exchanges in terms of morally acceptable patterns of cover-up, such as sharing, tipping, or charity. This volume allows one to travel across time and space, so any hitchhiking reader can choose their own route to trace people's challenges geographically and historically. The reader might like to take up the budget option, practices used by the poor and underprivileged, the weapons of the weak, or strategies of survival, which are more commonly associated with informality studies. One can also travel in business class, as it were, and study informal ways to solve the problems of the wealthy and the powerful, such as strategies of tax optimization, strategic migration, or resort to traditional medicine and occult practices. For example, a well-to-do Chinese mother can give birth to an anchor baby in the United States with a long-term plan to educate her child there and obtain a U.S. passport that would prospectively allow for family unification in the United States. In another example of problem-solving, Canadian middle-class women resort to the help of professional organizations to deal with the pressure of overwhelming possessions and churning. Each chapter closes with a detailed bibliography which frames the case studies so that the reader may continue to study the informal practices, networks, or institutions that sparked their interest and place them in a global and comparative context. If one pursues biographical logic, the next stop after birth is growing up, which is complicated in many corners of the world. You may be faced with the pressure of being a student in Nigeria, the stress of competition in Asia, the absurdity behind subordination in the Russian army, labeling, and the general psychological trauma of being a teenager, all discussed in Chapter 2, where the pressure of and resistance to formal constraints go hand in hand with peer pressure. Chapter 3 focuses on the digital age, whereby through experiencing bullying, catfishing, or Tinder swindling, one learns not to trust the digital media world, to avoid the perils associated with being inexperienced, lonely, vulnerable, or depressed, or unable to fall in love. One may find refuge in an arranged marriage. Following the West Balkans tradition of inheritance, there is an option for a woman to live her life as a man, thus remaining single and waiting for a male heir in the extended family to take over and ensure the continuation of the male inheritance line. This book's journey through the world's diversity of practices, customary in one's place and traveling to other locations through diasporas, the dispersion or spread of a people from their original homeland, through diasporas, labor or forced migration, reveals the uniqueness of one's own life, but also points out the patterns of cooperation characteristic of humanity overall. As illustrated in the chapters on informal networks, informal income, and alternative currencies of support. For a post-human hitchhiker, human life with its aging, illnesses, anxiety, and continuous problem solving may look like a struggle, yet a struggle softened by a human touch, human emotion, human cooperation. This volume addresses the issues of emotional ambivalence, whereby the family, the people you love, intended to nurture and support you, are also the ones who can inflict the most pain. It emphasizes the pressures of the digital age, intended to unite and integrate, yet results in division and polarization. The informal practices assembled here can teach the designers of the digital age how people really work and what they want in the aftermath of the pandemic-driven reflection period. The underlying patterns of informal practices in this volume demonstrate the urgency of alleviating tensions between continuity and all too rapid change, and or create shortcuts to tackle the central problem of modern society's uncertainty. Migration crises, the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, political divides, democracy backsliding, and trends to improve life-work balance have created a new normal, associated with both a new high in uncertainty and misinformation, and a new low in levels of fairness and inequality. People's experiences of lockdown and related pandemic management measures varied enormously depending on their health, age, and socioeconomic status. People suffering from a chronic disease faced reduced access to health care for non-COVID-19 conditions. The switch to online education put underprivileged students at a disadvantage. Children and adolescents with lower economic status or with migration background and limited living space experienced significant challenges to their mental health. In addition, lockdown restrictions increased the risk of gender-based violence due to the mental health effects of isolation and barriers to victim support. Maintaining mental health became a major challenge for human beings living in such context as previously prevalent life strategies became redundant. The natural experiment caused by the pandemic lockdowns highlights the importance of informality in human life. It's like I want to take a break here and say that it's like we were given this barrier of formalization, that everyone understood that there are people who are dealing with it differently than others are, and some people take some things more seriously than others do. And we're all indoctrinated differently, and we all have these different, I guess, mentality quirks, or the way we take in information and we believe it, and then what we put out into the world from what information we take in is to our reaction. Like, people want to lock themselves down. When you hear the word lockdown, you think of someone being locked up, or you think of someone being blocked out. But lockdown too is something that people do with their self. Like, they don't want to go out. They don't want to be part of this thing, especially with all the scrutiny that seems to be happening. It's like privacy isn't true, and we're finding out that privacy isn't real. Privacy is something that people can think they have, but it's not true. Just like freedom is sometimes false, or the way we think about things, the way we think about privacy, the way we think about freedom. Our thoughts are false. Our thoughts are false, but we can have them. They're not false, they're fiction. We're thinking of ourselves fictionally. Not false, fiction. We might say something, but we mean something else. Like, the words we're using, there's so many things that they can mean, but we don't realize that unless we think about it that way. Like, I act like I don't know how to talk. If we're not talking about things, like right now I'm reading a book, I'm using my smartphone, okay? Reading a book using my smartphone, using my device on Facebook to read it aloud, and I've taken a break to say something. And I'm thinking right now, since I'm doing this, about the movie Stranger Than Fiction, where Will Ferrell is a man named Harold Crick, who his life is being typewritten by a woman who, while he's brushing his teeth, he one day hears narrating his life for him. And that movie is a real thought experiment to have, and like many movies are. Like, this is mentioning some movie about a hitchhiker, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or something. I don't think I've watched that, but it sounds interesting, and it's part of the name of this book, or of this encyclopedia. Anyway, it's an interesting thought experiment that Harold Crick is a man who's being narrated, and he doesn't want to die, and he finds the author eventually, I think. I don't remember how the movie ends. I could watch it again. But it's just the fact that he is, what's outstanding about it is his character that he plays in a movie is a character of a book. And a character in that movie is also an author of the character he's playing, who is the character in her book. And it's interesting. An interesting way to think about our lives. Like, we are the person that we are doing what we do as we do it. And that's a lot for us to think about. You know, if you're a person who's scrolling through social media on your phone and you take the moment to narrate the fact that you're doing that, there's so many things I can refer to. I guess, or I want to think that there's more than what I can refer to. That's why I say so many things. I think there's probably more than what I can refer to that says narration is good, like journaling, like keeping a diary and things. They keep us, but when you're realizing that, and that's something that you don't want to do, but it's something that you think about doing, you know, you want to do things your own way. You don't want to do what you're told, because I guess we have a tendency to be rebellious, and you know, even in that sense, like I'm not journaling, I'm not keeping notes throughout the day of what I'm doing, because that's not what I am to do. I don't have to do that. I could do that. It might make my life go a little more smoothly, but also there is the fact that if I did that, I would have to write down the things that are upsetting as well. I don't want to talk about what's upsetting. I don't want there to be upsetting things to take place just because I've decided to keep a journal. I don't want to upset the natural flow, whatever natural flow there is, to just being without journaling. But I've thought about journaling. It wouldn't make sense for me to do it, I don't think. But it's supposed to be a powerful tool for us. But the way that I think of evil, the way that I think of deception, I do not journal. That's what I'm trying to say. But then again, narration is good. When we stop and think about who we are, what we're doing, the location we are in. I do it all the time when I'm at a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, whatever. I've playfully thought to myself that I am not in my kitchen. In my kitchen, in the kitchen I don't see it as a kitchen. I see it as a room where there is a sink, and I sometimes cook myself something, but there's dishes in there that I don't want to wash, and there's a trash can in there, there's a fridge that isn't my fridge because, you know, I don't own the place that I live, I rent it. There's a kitchen in there that I don't use because I'm not home enough to use it. I don't live here, I stay here. I mean, I do live here, but it's, you know, I have to be out a lot because I work. I work to live. I don't do a lot of living, I do a lot of working. But I understand that, you know, it's strange. I don't want to have, it's not that I don't want to be the person that I am. It's just that society, the way society is, the way things are, how we all get things done, you know, put in perspective, just I've heard all my life that that people have it worse than I do. That's what I've heard all my life. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know that people have it worse than I do, but I don't want to bring myself down to, you know, worse. Like, I don't want to be worse off than what I am. And, you know, the things that we do are what bring us down. You know, I haven't done this in a while. I haven't read a book aloud in a while, so it's refreshing to do that. It's refreshing to read something besides the Bible. But still, the way I'm living my life, I don't want to be worse off than what I am, but I don't think of myself as better off than anyone else, It's just something that I've heard in my life that I should be thankful for what I've got because, and I hate that I've heard this all my life, because I have it better than other people have got it. I mean, I can't help it that that's something I've heard. And I know that people, when they say things, like there are things that people say that they don't mean anything by. I don't think I have it any better than anyone else. I don't want to think that people have it. You know, whatever life is, this love we're living in, this love of life we live, what love is, life, is what I try to see it as, and I believe this informality study has done it to me. I'm not trying to be angry about it. I'm enlightened by it. I realize that I've been enlightened. Anyway, I've been seeing love as creation, and I associate that with the Bible. It's hard to do that because the Bible says something somewhere about loving one another. There's something in there that says loving one another. But if we see the word love as a word that means creation, and if we see the word live, the word living, the word lives, the word love, the word loving, the word loves, that we are creating, that's what life is. We're living that we are creating, which is love. Love is what we create. He drags his fingers across the table and back and says, we create love. Live is what love is. And that we are creating. He drags his fingers across the plastic table. And that's part of what he does for a moment. And he doesn't even finish reading this.